because it is kind of clear and consistent approach by India and their trade deals. I mean, one of their key exports is people, as it were. Like, they're very keen to make sure that they include mobility rights for students, professionals of various kinds, for mutual recognition of professional standards and things. And it seems that in order to get this win for lots of large European companies, it looks like the EU has been forced to concede or forced to take potentially lots of migrants of various sorts.
It's kind of funny because looking at how they're managing the illegal migration and making sure they send them home even after committing crime. Good luck with the students and the workers.
So hello and welcome back to the MCC Brussels podcast. As ever, I'm Jake Reynolds, Head of Policy. Delighted to host this week's podcast. We've got lots to get through. We're going to be talking about EU trade deals from Mercosur to India. We're going to take a look at the disaster that is Brussels' 600 days without a government. And we're going to have a little look at the sort of board of peace that Trump has announced. Joining me on the podcast this week, really delighted, we've got a very special guest, Barbara Bronte, MEP for Vlaams Belang and in the Patriots for Europe group in the European Parliament. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
And joining us back again, delighted to welcome back Agnieszka Kolek, our colleague.
Thank you for having me.
So, first off, this week, there's been lots of a flurry of kind of trade deal news in European politics. As we're recording this, von der Leyen is in India, where they just announced a massive trade deal with India, which we'll get onto. But first, we want to take stock of Mercosur, because this has been a huge point of contention, especially for European farmers. We've done a lot at MCC Brussels to support and highlight the issues that farmers have faced because of EU regulation. And it's kind of the deal's been signed, but now it's having a second life, because firstly, we have the whole issue has been sent to the courts to take a look at, but also it's prompted various moves in the European Parliament, including a motion of censure against von der Leyen. Barbara, could you tell us about that motion of censure? So the Parliament, or at least you guys in the Parliament, are really not happy about Mercosur, and you believe that von der Leyen needs to go as a result.
So we had the motion of censure in the European Parliament against Ursula von der Leyen. It was already the third or the second, I forgot to count, the motion of censure against her and her commission. We already had a motion of censure about the Pfizer gate, about other things. She is not listening to the European people. And you saw it very clearly when the farmers were protesting in the streets in Strasbourg. She was not there. She was in South America signing the Mercosur agreement without approval of the European Parliament, because it is not approved by the European Parliament. There was a motion to go to the European Court of Justice for advice, so it's not been signed. But because of all those, the way the Commission works and all she doesn't care about what the farmers are doing. That's the reason why we filed the motion of censure in the European Parliament. And the motion of censure unfortunately didn't pass, but it was a clear signal, because there were also people from other groups like the EPP group who voted in favor for the motion of censure. And now they got punished. So they have a punishment. For example, people of the BBB, the Dutch party, the Boer-Burgerbeweging, got fined because they voted in favor. And they, for example, they may not participate to trilogues, to the legislative and so on. So, I don't have to tell you that it's not a democratic way of working like this.
Yeah, I was actually interested in that, Agnieszka, because we got this kind of thing going on in the Parliament where and it's now being reviewed by the courts, this whole trade deal. But EU leaders, for example, von der Leyen herself, but also Friedrich Merz, were very clear to come out and say it doesn't matter what the European Parliament says, we're going to go ahead with this. And that's indicative of their whole approach to politics more generally.
Yes, and I think we have to look at the fact that they've been working on this deal for years. This is not something that was just planned in a year. It's been 2 decades, if I remember well. And it's very similar with the trade deal with India. So for me, what is fascinating with that is that one thing is, as the populace of Europe, as things are changing and Europeans, through the voting system, they're expressing their opposition to the way they've been ruled over for the decades, because we see a shift towards the right, and depending on the country, it might be more further right or less. they continue with pushing with these policies and signing these deals over the tops of people's heads. And here also it seems that they use the instability in the world as a way to kind of jump forward with the whole project of centralizing Europe. So they use this, they say that they use this chaos and instability as an opportunity. But it's not opportunity to really work harder for the people, but actually to centralize the power and to censor any dissent.
Yeah, that's correct. I want us to get on to talk about India in this regard as well, because it seems that, I mean, as you say, this trade deal's been a long time in the making, but suddenly it all kind of got sorted, and you feel that this had more to do with the EU wanting to show, oh, we're big, we can respond to Trump being difficult, than it did about looking after the interests of European businesses and farmers and all the rest of it. But Barbara, I know we still need to study the India deal in some more detail, but do you have any first thoughts or reactions to what's been agreed?
Well, I already saw some aspects of it, and especially for the Flemish economy. So we have, for example, in Flanders, a big chemical industry. I think for that it's a good thing, because they can export to India. We also, I heard for the beer, for example, it's also an export product of Flanders. It can also be beneficial also for the suppliers of parts of the automotive industry. So we don't have, unfortunately, a lot of automotive industry left in Belgium, but we have some suppliers for it. Mm-hmm. So for that, it can also beneficial. And so I think, yes, there can be a lot of opportunities, but you have to be careful, because there's also a part about immigration in the trade deal. And we have to be very careful that it's not going to be a channel where hundreds of thousands of people are coming to Europe, like students, ITers. And when people come to Europe, it has to be very strict, very controlled, but it may not be an easy channel for Indian people to come to Europe and to overflow our continent.
Yeah, and Jeske, I wanted your thoughts on this as well, because it is kind of clear and consistent approach by India in their trade deals. I mean, one of their key exports is people, as it were. Like, they're very keen to make sure that they include mobility rights for students, professionals of various kinds, for mutual recognition of professional standards and things. And it seems that in order to get this win for lots of large European companies, it looks like the EU has been forced to concede or forced to open up in many ways for potentially lots of migrants of various sorts.
So as I was mentioning previous podcast, I also look at the symbolism and the way things are being shown. So I watched the posts from official von der Leyen's X account on her visit to India, and I've seen the European flag. I've heard about Europe's democracy being one of the democracies that together with India. So I was seeing in the symbolism that individual countries don't exist anymore. This is one bloc. So as I said earlier on, it's a jump forward. So the more people demand to be sovereign, to actually decide their fate, and especially on the issue of migration, there is a huge uproar in Europe when people say we didn't vote for that, and this is being pushed down our throats. Now we have signing of this deal where on the surface looks great. Yes, we're going to sell this, we're going to sell that, and it's going to be a great benefit. In the official statement that I've seen online, there was not much details yet, but it was said that, it will be good for like 800,000 working people and so on. What is it to the millions of people living in Europe and the cultural impact on their life and security if this migration goes through? It's not so big. And also, maybe the big corporation and the bosses of the big firms, they're going to benefit. But what about the individual citizens? How is it going to trickle down to the citizens? So this is a big concern for me. And I'm concerned about democracy and sovereign states making decisions for themselves, what works for them, based on the geopolitical situation, based on what they produce themselves, what they would get out of it. Because, yes, automotive industry in Germany, great, they're going to benefit. With South American deal, they will also benefit. Who is benefiting most of the time with these deals? I would ask this question. So I find it quite problematic and concerning that it's all about centralizing Europe. It's all about making a massive jump forward and creating this kind of a PR smoke screen. It all looks good on the surface, but when you start looking deeper into the details, it's very troubling.
We have to be careful that when we import migrants, even in a legal way, and if they stay here mostly during their lifetime, and they get old, and it costs a lot of money on society. And most of the times, employer sees only the benefits of migrants coming here and working for them. But then they grow older, and they cost also a lot of money, and that's something that they don't take always into account. So that's something we should really be aware of, and we really, if any of them would come, it has to be organized very strict for a very short time and very under certain circumstances, but not a channel for mass migration. We absolutely must avoid this.
Right, so moving on, here in Brussels, if you live and work in Brussels, you can't help but notice the kind of incredible dysfunction of much of the city administration. And this ultimately comes back to a deep political crisis, which isn't just about Brussels, but is about Belgium as a whole, and a real political crisis, and the kind of the legacy of this, the independence demand, which Barbara represents as Vlaams Belang. But Brussels itself has been out without a government for, I think it's 600 days now. This has had knock-on effects. It's been impossible to form any kind of agreement. But this also reflects in many ways, doesn't it, Barbara, the fact that there seems to be a systematic attempt to keep out any alternatives to the status quo, and that's one of the reasons why it's been so difficult to form a government.
First of all, I will maybe explain to the listeners how the situation in Belgium actually is. So you have the federal government, then you have 3 regions, you have 3 communities. It's about all the language and culture. And one of the regions is the Brussels region. And the Brussels region has its own parliament, its own government, 89th representative, and a lot of institutions around it. And within Brussels, you still have 19 different communities too. So 19 little cities, little towns, not little, but 19 towns. And they all have their own city council too. So yes, you can imagine it's about 600 city councillors, municipal councillors there. So it's really a lot of people, a lot of structure there. So in the first place, the Brussels region shouldn't have been created because it's a mess. It costs a lot of money. During the years that it has been created, it was always under socialist, under leftist government. There were always leftist mayors. You see the debt is $1.5 billion. So it's a lot. The banks are now stopping their credit lines because they say, we won't finance them anymore because they are not credit worthy anymore. So there is a risk of a shutdown. So they are predicting a shutdown March, April. So it's really a mess, and it's all due to the years of socialists mess that they created, and also of the Brussels region itself, because it's really a disaster, whole the structure.
Yeah, and as I said, Barbara, if I can ask as well, does this? I mean, is it in some ways related to the kind of what seems to me to be the growing political divide in Belgium itself? Obviously, you represent one wing of that divide, but
what you see very clearly in Brussels, when you walk in Brussels, for example, you probably haven't heard one word of Dutch there. And I was born in Brussels, I studied in Brussels, I worked in Brussels, and every time it was declining. When I was studying in Brussels, I could go to the shop and I could speak in Dutch, and some of them would understand me, but some of the people, and it always declined, and they really disrespect the Flemish minority in Brussels. And Brussels is, in fact, when you look at the map geographically, it's part of Flanders. So that's the word. So it's part of Flanders, but it's our rights are not respected. And then you can see clearly also in the government formation, the Flemish nationalists, they want to get rid of. So they don't want them in the government. So now it's stuck. I don't know what's going to happen. I think the shutdown will happen. And I think we're in a situation with no end.
Yeah, then I guess it does seem kind of irresolvable, this crisis in Brussels, but it's indicative in many ways. It's supposed to be, I mean, it's where so many of the European institutions are located, and it always seems to me to be a kind of illustration in miniature of how these kind of this policy of left-wing deal-making, left-wing policies ultimately, which defines a lot of the European Union, like they find their expression in Brussels as well.
Yes, I think here we also see this, how does it work in practical terms where we claim to live in democracy, but actually after the elections, you block from forming the coalition government with the party that you see as the one that shouldn't be governing, but they were elected by the people. And this is the situation in the Brussels region. But then the government of the country is with this party, and they are governing. So that's the main issue of this blocking of building the coalition and everyone just giving up step by step and not even attempting anymore. And this is going to be already 600 days. And people that live in Brussels, they're going to gather on Friday to protest. And, on the outside, it might seem like, oh, what is a big deal? If they can be without the government for 600 days, maybe they don't need the government. Maybe this money is just, wasted paying these people, we can just go on like that. But no, there's no investment. There is no budget. There is no way of plan how to improve the infrastructure, how to fix things, how to develop the parts of the city that needs to be developed. So for ordinary citizens and also like for us as expats living here, it's hell on earth because the metro doesn't work. It keeps breaking. And I think, okay, is this metro soon is going to break in this way that is actually dangerous to my life? Or am I just going to continue walking to work constantly, which happened over spring quite a lot? This is one issue. Then there is, you have these socialist parties, as you say, but are they really caring about the people? Because since this issue with the new government, the homelessness in the streets is growing. And it's really troubling to see these people like dying in the metro, taking drugs, sleeping there, doing other things. It's horrendous. When I go back to Poland and talk to my friends and they ask me like, oh, how is it in Brussels and so on? And they don't mean just the politics, but in general, living in the city, everyone is curious. It's the capital city of Europe. And then I say, and at first they don't want to believe. They think that this is just me being so dismissive and negative. But then I send them the links to the articles. I show them the photos and they are shocked, not to mention the crime, the gang wars. This is very dangerous. And if you don't have the budget, if you don't have the investment, if you cannot make any decisions to reform the separate departments to deal with social issues from safety, social help and so on, how are you going to go on? So I think probably it has to be dismantled. Probably it has to decay completely and collapse. And we have to build from scratch.
So, but actually, it's not all bad news in Brussels. We, MCC, we just released, MCC Brussels, we just released a press release because we're celebrating quite a momentous event in Brussels, which is that a pro-free speech court case was won in the French-speaking court here in Brussels, and relating to, our viewers will know well, the saga around NatCon Brussels a couple of years ago, where the police were sent in to close the event down, and there was an initial ruling in the Dutch-speaking chamber that managed to stay the closure, and that was stopped. But subsequently, a very important court case been won to say that justifies that it was wrong to have shut down the event, that the mayor's attempted justifications for shutting it down were completely inadmissible. This is kind of momentous. Barbara, what was your reaction to this press release? I know you were saying earlier that you thought it was kind of unlikely that this case was going to succeed, but it did.
Yes, I was surprised, but I'm very happy that they took the right decision, of course, because it's not normal that you don't have free speech or free expression in Brussels, in the capital of Europe, with the middle of Europe. So I remember one thing when I was 23 and I was just working at Vlaams Belang. We commemorated 9/11. The attacks on 9/11 with some flowers, and we went to the embassy. And then there was a socialist mayor, And he absolutely didn't accept it. And so he said, oh, no, you cannot go. But still we went with all the Vlaams Belang members of parliament because it was very important to us to commemorate the victims. And then they, because we couldn't do that, they asked police coming from Liège, French-speaking police to Liège. Also the Brussels police, they asked them to come to take us, to arrest us, to put us in jail. And we have been in jail for 8 hours. Yeah, because just for a commemoration. What I want to say is that, in Brussels, it's a culture that it's already more than 20, 30 years is the left wing, the socialists who cannot accept free speech, who cannot accept other views than their views. So that's why they try to silence people.
Yeah, we're delighted with the victory. It's an unusual one, but a very important one. And Agnieszka, what did you take away from this court victory?
I think listening now to Barbara, I think that actually they created like their own fiefdom, and they thought that they can rule over it as if it was their own little country within a country. So I think this is a tremendous success, and I do hope that this ruling will be a breakthrough to allow other people to speak up and be able to organize the events and to assemble freely, associate themselves freely, to actually to make this place as a thriving place of debate, actual debate, democratic debate, because through that we can actually break the walls and actually open up this space also on this European level. So a lot of the things that seem to be so set in stone and unbreakable, this is the first crack, and we should continue.
Yeah, that was really because all our members of parliament were all together in jail, and we were also in jail with all the women separate in a jail with 25 women working for Vlaams Belang, all arrested, all in jail. Here in the Court of Justice in the.
Do you have any photographs of that? Do you have any photographs of that?
When I will take a look. Maybe we sang songs. We were singing.
Very good. No, very good. Very good. Well done.
But then they really humiliated us because we, as a woman, we had to undress, and they didn't want to close the door.
If I could, I would just swear now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's
disgusting.
And that's how they operate.
Mm.
And they took, especially the Liège police, because the Liège police is it are French speaking, and it is all Vlaams Belang. You can
be harsh with them.
Yeah, can be harsh. You can arrest them.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
No, well, then it's still the case that and this was the playbook that they tried, was that the local Antifa work in collaboration with the authorities, and I know this is something that still plagues those
media as well.
Yeah. And the whole thing was
they are in bed together.
And that's why the court case was quite important, because this latest tactic where they have Antifa turn up and then they say, oh no, there's going to be public disorder, we have to close your event down, I'm so sorry.
That's always what they're doing,
And this court case is...
And possible riots.
Yeah. And this court case is really important because it's the first one in the French-speaking courts that says this strategy is not acceptable.
Because when it's football in Anderlecht and they're also predicting riots, the football match is going through.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going on, so...
selective.
It's very selective, yes.
Yeah.
Finally, we've done a lot of Trump in the last few weeks on the MCC Brussels podcast, but we want to take a look at the peace board, which Trump has been assembling. Various world leaders have been invited. Some European leaders have declined. Some have accepted. They've assembled a slightly, has to be admitted, odd mix of national leaders. Lots of people are saying that this is just a kind of ego thing for Donald Trump, and then there's horror on the behalf of people like Emmanuel Macron, who says, no, we can never abandon the United Nations. But Agnieszka, I know that sometimes it's difficult to kind of separate the what's just Trump from serious international affairs. But you think there might be some rationale, or is possible to make sense of this that isn't just about Donald Trump's ego?
So I always like to entertain different approaches to things, not just the straightforward one. And here I would propose that what if it's just a disruptor's tactic, just to throw a ball and start the ball rolling and see whether we can work out something different to United Nations, because they clearly haven't been really serving their purpose. And like with the conflict, Israel-Gaza, it's actually been worsened by their actions and their work. And then when we look at the approach of the members of United Nations to different issues around the world, that actually, they're not contributing to the peace, not completely. So here I would like to wait and just observe how it will develop. And my proposition is, what if it's just to disrupt and kind of start to frame the conversation in a new way?
Yeah, Barbara, it's clear, and lots of people have made this point, that the old international institutions no longer are fit for purpose. And you might not agree with everything Trump does, but isn't it the case we do need some different institutions?
I think Donald Trump is taking action, and that's something what now, for example, the European Union is always talking about this and talking this and monitoring things, but Donald Trump is always, he says what he wants and he does it. For example, with the American elections, he promised some things, and after the elections, he did what he promised. So that's something we in Europe don't really know. But about the board of peace, yeah, it was established within United Nations, first for Gaza, then he made it broader thing for peace. And I think every diplomatic effort to achieve peace is a very welcome thing, because when you see the European Union, for example, the war in Ukraine, you're always giving huge amount of money to Ukraine, and an endless war in my eyes. Every day there are young men dying on both sides. Families are torn apart. It's tragic. The war has to stop, and I think Donald Trump, with the Board of Peace, wants to do some efforts to stop effectively the war, and to talk also with the enemy, because when you want to stop a war, you have to talk with your enemy, and that's also what he's doing. He's bringing the parties together to talk, and that's already a very big step. Something what the European Union is not doing at all.
Yeah, well, any efforts to bring peace closer can be celebrated. We'll keep looking at this to see. I mean, it's unclear exactly how the European Union, for instance, is going to respond to Trump's invitation. So we'll be looking at this in more detail. But for more on the court case we mentioned, do check out our website. We've got an extensive press release which goes through why it's such a momentous moment. We're going to be doing more on some of the issues we discussed. We'll bring you some analysis on our X account of the India trade deal once we make sense of it here at MCC Brussels. But for now, I'd like to thank our guests, especially Barbara Bonte. Thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Yes, thank you.
And Agnieszka, thanks for coming back on.
Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed the MCC Brussels podcast, as ever, please do like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. We're interested in issues you think we should be taking more seriously, so let us know if there's an issue you'd like us to cover on future editions of the podcast. But for now, we'll see you at the same time next week.